How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Things are going good here in Pennsylvania. Just found out a new ice cream shop's opening.
Oh, nice.
And I don't mean a new business, I just mean another ice cream shop is opening.
A new
Although
one.
here we call it water ice.
That is not ice cream.
No, it's not, but it's the closest we're going to find around here that's not at a grocery store.
Yeah, it's Italian ice, which is, from what I hear, much better than the frozen Italian ice that you buy at the grocery store that I had as a kid, and it was hard as a
Yeah,
rock, and you couldn't,
the,
you had to like chisel into it, and it was terrible.
the classic, the Ritas, right? That's what everyone had. The Ritas Italian ice. It's the little cup with the striped top on it.
I think so.
Because that's also from here. That's one of the biggest companies in the area.
Yeah, you need a hammer and chisel to eat it.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you remember the ice cream truck had the snow cone with the rock hard ball at the bottom,
Oh,
the rock hard ball of bubble gum.
yeah, the gumball. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, that you just had to sort of roll in your hand a little bit to soften it up enough that you could eat it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
most of
like
that,
that one too,
yeah,
actually.
most of that ice cream was terrible.
Yeah. Exciting news, though.
Uh huh.
This is something I've done for the very first time. I contacted a state representative to help me with a problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as regular viewers will know, April 25th was exactly 1 month since I filed my unemployment claim and heard absolutely nothing back. So I contacted our state representative, and within 3 hours, one of his top aides got back to me. They passed my phone number and my case number along to the unemployment commission, gave
Just
me a secret link to like reset everything, got me prioritization, and then gave me a couple phone numbers to add to my phone because they're gonna call me the next couple of days, and then the state representative is actually gonna follow up with me to make sure they did it.
oh, they do not want a news article.
No, and I was really nice in my email. I mean, I made sure, and this is called bipartisanship. He's a Democrat senator, didn't bother me. I was like, you guys are great. I really appreciate you actually helping me out with all this.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, they also just announced they set up a new unemployment program for folks who were denied unemployment, which is it's just for everybody. I guess I was reading through the eligibility requirements. One of them is you quit your job because you were scared about getting COVID-19.
Hell yeah. And how much do you get for that? Same amount?
Um, Unclear. So this system, I mean, they literally finished building it 2 days ago. So it just shows everyone is getting the bare minimum of $195 a week.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if you're living with roommates, if you've got like $400 a month for your rent, I'd probably still say fuck it.
Yeah, versus going out and doing that. I've discovered I'm very uncomfortable wearing these masks. I think the easy answer is I have to shave, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna
What?
get to the end of that and they were gonna go, "Sorry for not getting back to you." No.
No, they actually were helpful. I was
Yeah.
surprised because I had an incident in Virginia once where I had to contact the city council to help put some pressure on my landlord company, who I then sued and signed a very long-term NDA, and who I don't think they
So we
keep good
won't get
records because
into
I'm
that.
actually renting from them now.
Oh.
Yeah,
Huh.
but I've never actually contacted them. It was weird. I didn't know how to start the email. I didn't know how to be like, hey, I know I'm in the same boat as literally millions of other people,
Yeah.
but I'd like special help. But I got it.
Yeah. Nice. All
Yeah,
right. Well, you want to jump into
maybe.
some
No one's
questions
called
for
me
the?
yet.
Oh, you want to jump into some questions for the week?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tell people what they are. And that way, if I ask abbreviated versions of our guests, who have all, just so the viewer knows, we send these questions out ahead of time to our guests. So they've all had a chance to read them and think about them. So this week's questions. Several meatpacking plants have announced that they will need to close because they lack workers. Industry experts say that has reduced our national capacity to produce meat, specifically pork and chicken, by about 25%. Trump has ordered the meat plants to stay open under the Defense Production Act. The plants say they still won't have the workers. So all that aside, we want to know if there's any other part of the supply chain that people worry might break down as we get deeper into the quarantine.
Um, am I supposed to answer now, or are you just gonna read through them?
I'm worried about bullets.
Yeah. Ammunition. Canning, like canned food type stuff, in case stuff gets really bad. I would like to be able to buy something that will last for a while.
Mhm.
Um, Automotive lines wouldn't be super great to start breaking down.
No, I agree. We just got, well, we'll get into that some other time. All right. Next question. YouTube has announced they'll be automatically removing videos that contradict or include COVID 19 information that's not approved by the WHO, citing their community standards. Facebook announced they will be sending users warnings if they've liked or commented on false information about COVID 19, also citing the WHO as one of their major sources. The WHO itself has come under scrutiny for its handling and dissemination of COVID 19 information. So, how do you think social media companies should police information on their platform? And I'm also going to ask everyone a follow up. Do they think COVID 19 is a special case, or do they think this should be the sort of policy that these platforms follow all the time?
Well, my answer is the same for both. They shouldn't.
You and I agree on that.
Yeah.
We disagree on this disease, but we agree on that.
Yeah, I read that question. I was like, oh, finally, come back together.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be policing anything. People can make their own add-ons. Allow people to block other people, but let people make their own decisions.
Yeah. I mean, social media is supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be for arguments. I joined a Reopen Pennsylvania group, and the majority of the shit in there I do not agree with, and I find it pedantic and stupid.
Yeah.
But I still agree with the overall idea of reopening the state.
The
Social
Hegelian
media is not supposed to
dialectic.
be perfect for you.
No,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but they just want it to be like a nice place where everybody comes, like a Disneyland online, and a strict police force like Disneyland.
I think they're actually just more scared of the government trying to come in and regulate their business. Soup to nuts.
I don't think they're scared of it at all. I think they want regulation of websites. They just want to guide it in a way that's going to allow them to solidify their power for a 1,000-year reich.
Do not disagree. And then our final question this week is going to be 8 out of 10 COVID 19 hotspots in the US or jails or prisons. For curiosity, the other two is a Smithfield meatpacking plant and the USS Theodore Roosevelt. So 8 out of 10 are jails or prisons. The top two are in Ohio. Many regions have already released low-level and nonviolent offenders in an attempt to flatten the curve, but some groups are demanding that prisons release more inmates to combat the spread of the virus. Want to know what people think about that? They think it's a good idea? If they think that people in jail should be condemned?
I think it's a good test case. That'll really let you know, like a jail is a pretty sizable population that will let you know what the death rate actually is.
Well, at the prisons especially, because if you're in prison, it's not.
That's what I'm saying. You're going to get it.
Yeah. And the top two are large prisons. On Tuesday, the first woman in federal prison died. She was 30 years old, died while having a cesarean section while hooked up to a ventilator. The baby lived.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the baby has to serve out the rest of her sentence.
Oh, that sucks.
Prison rules, man.
Yeah, poor Babby. Like a NASCAR driver whose father once said something racist. The child must carry the burden.
So many things in the news this week. And we're finally starting to see non-COVID-19 related news, which I'm finding refreshing.
It is good. Like aliens.
Yeah.
Aliens. The ones that you're allowed to say.
Yeah. Those are apparently real now. The government decided just to drop that. And then maybe that's why Trump made his bleach comments. They dropped the alien footage and then Trump goes, inject bleach. And everyone just goes to bleach. We're going to inject bleach.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to bring in our first guest, which would be Trey?
Yeah, in just 1 second.
Who we lost in the last episode. But again, those lost tapes, you don't want to see them. Very boring. Not at all interesting. And we definitely stayed on topic.
Yeah. All right. Here comes Trey.
Perfect.
Hello.
Hey, buddy. Oh, we always have to do this part where we wait for him to connect to audio.
Oh, yeah. Zoom. The Zoom struggle. Oh, hello.
Hey, bud. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are y'all doing?
Doing good. How's your quarantine been?
It's been going well. Just been nothing majorly seismic has happened in the past week or so. So that's been good.
This is the darkest your background's ever been.
I
You
know.
look like you're telling scary stories.
I like the drama.
Yeah, it is. It's very dramatic. Sorry we lost all that great online role-playing talk from last week.
I know it's too bad. It's all right. I did reach back out, but I don't know if you were too busy, Clay, to see if you guys were able. I missed your message the first night you sent it to me.
Yeah. Clay
recorded
actually
a different time.
later on that week tried to find online role-playing forums where we might have been hanging out.
Just Jacob. Well, I zoomed with Jacob and I brought up a bunch of Final Fantasy forums and I screen shared and just clicked through each one to see if he had any reaction to it, and it was none of them.
Nah, that was the age of the AOL chat room.
Yeah, it's like I'm not searching through all these if I don't know.
It's
All right.
done.
All right, Trey, you saw the questions. We're going to jump into those. But first, anything new with you? Anything new in your area going on with the disease you want to talk about, or you just want to get into the questions?
Yeah, nothing new. Getting the questions is good.
Yeah, I know. It is. It's nothing new, right? We're all just settling in. This is becoming the new routine.
Right.
I appreciate that you refrained from saying the new normal.
I did. Yeah. I was going to say new normal, but
so tired of that phrase.
I know. I've been trying to back off of that one.
Yeah. I like the old normal. I assume the old normal didn't have coronavirus.
Yeah.
All right. So, Trey, several meatpacking plants have announced that they will need to close because they lack the workers.
Right.
It's going to significantly reduce our meatpacking capabilities, I guess.
Oh, we're having echo from your, I think from your speakers.
Me or Trey?
I think you're coming from Trey's speakers.
Okay.
Try again.
Oh, okay. Several meatpacking plants have announced that they will be closing because they lack the workers. This is going to reduce our production capabilities by 25%, according to experts. Trump has ordered them to stay open. The meatpacking plants say they still don't actually have the workers to stay open. Whole thing's a bit of a snafu. My question for you is, aside from the pork and chicken industry, is there some sort of supply chain aspect you're worried about breaking down?
I would say pharmaceuticals. If it is difficult to, look at exports. You already see India that has already begun to restrict exports of key pharmaceuticals in their fight against COVID, which is their prerogative, right? Like they want to make sure they are able to have them for their citizens and their people. But I think that what we're going to see, especially as many of our pharmaceuticals are manufactured in places outside of the states, that there might be some slowing down of that. Whether it is for things that are treating COVID or whether it's just for, like Humira, like arthritis or, or HIV meds or things that heart disease. I mean, they're just things people need that require people to actually be there, not just to actually make the pill, but to actually pack the bottle and then ship the box. Because I think that, people who are making the pill in labs, I imagine that they might be a little more insulated and might have a little more gear to protect themselves. But the people who are actually, driving the trucks, shipping things from one place to the other, they might have some issues there too. So I think looking at two different things, countries wanting to kind of curtail their exports of key ingredients or key medicines could be an issue for us, as well as having people who actually are, frontline workers in those industries who might, fall ill or might not want to put themselves in jeopardy, might, also impact how things get moved around.
Yeah, and that's the issue that they're discovering with those meatpacking plants is there are just employees who say they're not going to come back to work because they're worried.
Right.
All right. So that's great answer.
Yeah, good answer.
Let's move on to the next question. YouTube has announced that they'll be automatically removing videos that don't comport with information that's put out by the WHO. Facebook says they're going to send users warnings if they've liked or commented on stuff that's been rated as false, citing the WHO as one of their sources. WHO, as we presumably all know, has had some criticism about the way they've handled information related to coronavirus. So do you think that this is the correct approach for social media platforms to police the information on their platforms, or what?
I think that any company has a responsibility to their end user. And I think that these social media companies are in an interesting place because their end users happen to be most of the world, or at least most of the developed world. And I think that that's the tension there, I think, for me is, okay, well, people have the right to say what they want to say, have the right to hear what they want to hear, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, as a business, do I want to facilitate a discussion that I feel is actually ultimately harmful to people and to my customers? And if I say, no, I don't want to, then I think I have every right to police that conversation or at least to restrict information that I think is going to be harmful to people. Now,
how do you feel about them using the WHO as their source for what is harmful? YouTube's actually come out and been clear that it's not just if you contradict what the WHO says, but if you're offering guidance outside of what the WHO says, they'll also be removing that content.
I would probably feel more comfortable if there were more than just one authority that was being used to determine, what information should or shouldn't be out there. I mean, if there's a combination between WHO, CDC, NIH, then I'm a bit more comfortable with that. But I do think, you can't divorce the fact that the WHO does have a history of, being fairly politically motivated and whether it is in the favor of one country versus another. But I would feel better if there were multiple sources where they were using for that. Now, on the merits of should they monitor it? Yes, they should. The criteria of what is right, what is factual, I think that there should be a bit more discussion around that. Yeah.
Good.
But I also understand too at the same time that for a business, it might be easier to say, okay, this one source, we have a clear binary, yes or no. Like, does it conform? So like it makes our policing, our coding of the AI or whatever, an easier process versus if we are trying to have a panel at our company that is determining what the facts should be based on different sources of information.
Okay, and then we'll move on to the final question. 8 out of 10 COVID-19 hotspots in the U.S. are jails or prisons. A lot of areas have released low-level offenders or nonviolent offenders, but there are some groups who are demanding that more people be released, citing safety concerns, etc. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we probably have too many folks in jail right now as is. I think that jails oftentimes don't do what they are intended to. Well, I mean, they do what they're designed to do. They're designed to, I think, in many ways, just contain and unfortunately break people. I think that is the wrong approach to justice. Just that's off the bat. I think we should really focus on restoring people and actually investing in the humans who are, in the situation because they're there for a reason. And I think we have a responsibility to those people at the same time. So I would say in the spirit of that, yes, we should be releasing more people. I mean, at the same time, jails do have a function where there are people who are just actually violent, like who need to be separated from society. So yeah, I mean, like in that case, it is important to have those folks still in there. But I think the tension. I saw a story actually the other day about a 12-year-old in juvenile detention. Writing his mother and talking to her about how he was just terrified. Like of just being in there, being trapped and being sick. And I think it's important for me to really make sure that my concerns for what justice should look like does not get in the way of the fact that there's clear and present danger to those people, but also to those they come in contact with. And so, I'm for releasing more people.
Good. Thank you for the answer. Anything that you don't think people have talked about enough this week? Any one quick story or idea that's out there that you want to make sure you bring up?
For me, like one thing actually, I think we're hearing a lot, of course, about how everyone in businesses and restaurants and things are suffering as a result of COVID. And that is true. I think at the same time, on the other side of that coin is opportunity and innovation and creativity. And I think that if we begin to now, which I think that we are, as I was talking to this about actually a second ago, about how I'm becoming a bit more comfortable maybe living with the virus. Like it's almost like, okay, so it's a part of our fabric and my behaviors are adapting to the fact that it's out there and I have less anxiety attached to that adaptation. So maybe that's what it is. And so I think now that I imagine a lot of folks are beginning to feel that way too, to some degree, we can begin looking at what are the opportunities we can really mine out of this to make things better, or at least to still succeed and find joy or find some sort of progress, productivity in our present moment. So I think that I think that's a discussion that should be being had more frequently now than it is.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks for joining us, Trey.
Of course.
And we'll see you again soon.
See y'all then.
Yeah, stay safe.
All right, you too.
All right, we're gonna going to bring in Hannah in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, all right. Now we are joined by Hannah down there in Texas. As always, we have to do our dance where we wait for the audio to connect. But at least I could say where people are from and what their names are while we wait.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Thanks for joining us again. How'd your concrete job go? We didn't do a show last week because Hannah had to pour concrete. That's the whole reason we didn't do Sunday's episode, and the only reason.
It was a terrible disaster. We've got this giant, like a 50-year-old concrete slab in our backyard that's like a patio or whatnot. So we were trying to resurface the top, and it did not go well. We had to table the project, and we're gonna have to go back and work on another day, I think.
To be clear, I was the reason for Sunday's show not going through. Anyway.
Well, Hannah, you've seen today's questions, right?
Yes.
Before we jump into them, since you're down in Texas, anything new going on in your area? Anything new going on in Texas as it relates to the quarantine?
Yeah. So my county implemented mandatory mask use in public probably a week ago now, and which has been interesting because got public and everyone's like got their face covered and stuff now. But the interesting thing about it is Texas's governor just announced that restaurants and movie theaters and stuff are going to be allowed to reopen on Friday this week at limited capacity. So you can go sit on a patio in Texas, but you have to wear a mask, is what I'm getting.
There's that meme online of the guy with the whitey tighties wrapped around his head so that he can put his beer bottle through the hole in the front.
Clever.
Maybe that's the way people are going to have to do it. Yeah, I don't know how the mask and restaurant thing is supposed to work. I get it for the employees, but it's sort of important to have your mouth uncovered at a restaurant.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work out in practice for folks. I think the mask rule is probably going away at the end of the month, but I'm sure a lot of folks are still going to be like wandering around with their faces covered trying to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many people just keep wearing masks after this.
Yeah.
All right, so let's hop into it. You saw the questions. They're a little long this week, so I might do a brief version of them. So several meatpacking plants have decided that they are going to have to close because they don't have the workers. That's going to reduce our ability to produce chicken and pork by quite a bit, about 25%. Trump has ordered them to stay open. The meatpacking plants have said, we still don't have the workers just because you tell us we have to stay open. The whole thing's kind of a mess. But my question for you is there any other industry or part of the supply chain that you particularly worry about breaking down as we get deeper into this?
No, not especially. There's going to be some shortages, of course, I think. Any sector of the economy that's highly dependent on like high touch interventions, like for example, like berry picking, that requires a lot of human beings on the ground to pick berries, process berries, and stuff like that. So that's one example of a crop that's probably going to be pretty heavily impacted by this. The chicken processing is highly automated. So I'm surprised it's being affected this much, but I think it has a lot to do with just the nature of that sector. And it's, they're producing, it's so fine tuned that farms are only producing as much chicken in a week as what can be processed within the next few days. So they're more like Amazon now than probably any other ag sector. So like they're going to be hit by this hard. I wouldn't expect, say, like beef packing companies to have the same struggles as chicken and pork.
Yeah, that's what I thought was interesting. That everything's making it very clear that it is just chicken and pork. Part of the stories I was reading and prepping for it, I think it might have been Tyson's had to kill 2 million chickens because they didn't have enough employees to actually process the chickens. So they just had to straight up kill 2 million chickens.
Yeah, and that just comes down to just like the high degree of efficiency within that space. Beef is the least automated, and you can just stick a cow back out on pasture if you need to.
True. Then you have to hire the landscapers, which are essential businesses here in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
All right, let's move on. YouTube's announced that they'll be automatically removing videos that give any advice or any information about COVID-19 and is not officially approved by the WHO. It's not something that they themselves have recommended. Facebook has said they're going to be warning users if they've liked or commented on anything that they've rated as false. Once again, using the WHO as their source. I think most people know that WHO has its own credibility issues on the coronavirus. So using that as the primary source for these groups is a bit of a strange choice. Do you think the social media companies should police the information on their platform in this way?
Well, I think social media platforms are, trying to some extent trying to protect their brands, because after the whole debacle with the 2016 elections, and then there's a story that came out recently about Chinese intelligence using Facebook to spread disinformation during the crisis that we're in right now. I'm sure they're very concerned about damage to their brands, and they're trying to mitigate the effect of fake news. But they probably chose the World Health Organization because that's an international authority not tied to a particular country, so they probably have some geopolitical concerns as well. But I'm a libertarian. I'm kind of opposed to the whole notion of censorship on any platform, but I kind of understand where they're probably coming from.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Jack Dorsey recently said he wants to make a new version of Twitter that's sort of the Wild West where there's no rules. Which,
well, doesn't it already exist?
Yeah, I think that's called.
Yes, but Jack Dorsey doesn't own it, so it doesn't exist. Yeah. All right. Our last question for this week: 8 out of 10 of the COVID-19 hotspots in the U.S. are jails or prisons. A lot of areas, mine included, have released low-level and nonviolent offenders already. Some groups are demanding that they start releasing more prisoners to help stop the spread of the disease. What are your thoughts?
I favor. I don't think nonviolent offenders belong in prison at all. I favor rehabilitation efforts, and especially right now where crowded facilities are hotspots of virus spread and where it's costing people their lives. Like, we need to get folks out of prison and away from these epicenters of disease. Like, we have a duty to protect the people we have custody over, and we can't protect them when they're massed together in a giant facility and spreading germs around.
Yeah, my only concern is if these prisons are such hotspots, I don't know if I want them necessarily coming into my neighborhood. You know what I mean? If these people are all infected, that's a bit of a weird angle too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where ankle monitors and mandatory quarantines would come in.
Yeah,
I need to use ankle monitors anyway if you're releasing somebody before their sentence is up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I support the effort. I just don't know where you're supposed to put these people.
Yeah, I understand that.
Especially if if they're older fellas, they got to go back and live with their parents, and then they're coming from a highly infected place. That's probably not good for the parents.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated. Anything in the news that you feel like didn't get enough attention this week? Any ideas in your head that you want to make sure you get out there?
Yeah, I think it's getting a fair amount of media attention, but just the whole backstory to how much was known about the coronavirus outbreak and when by various health authorities and governments. I think the most recent story I saw in this was that the White House had asked U.S. intelligence to look into like the early stages of the coronavirus, how much the World Health Organization knew when, how much Chinese provincial authorities knew and when, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a really interesting story to follow, because there's going to, unfortunately, I think there's probably going to be a lot of finger pointing coming out of this. People are looking for somebody to blame for it.
For sure.
How long ago are they saying that authorities knew that this would be a big deal, I guess? How far back currently are they saying it?
Well, that the Senate committee that Richard Burr is on, a couple members of that Senate committee that Richard Burr is on sold off their bunch of their stock back in January. So somebody knew it's going to be big.
Yeah, the reporting I saw said that the day that the WHO told everybody that there's no human-to-human contact, that health and government officials in China had already known for 11 days that there definitely is human-to-human contact.
Do you know what date that was? Because I remember I was tracking it in December, going like, "This is gonna be a big deal." This is yeah.
I don't know the date, unfortunately.
Yeah, because I remember seeing something about them. No, like I remember seeing a news article that was like, there was classified documents back in February saying this is gonna be a big deal. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was saying it was gonna be a big deal in January.
Clay was trying to make me talk about this for an hour once a week, as early back as November. So. Yeah, Clay. In the end, will be vindicated. He was right.
Yeah,
this thing was coming.
Yeah.
All right, Hannah. Well, thank you for joining us, and good luck with the patio. You going to try again this weekend?
Yeah, hopefully. We got to fix it now for sure. It's like a third done. Looks terrible.
Well, the good news is you're not allowed to have anyone over, so no one will see it.
Yeah, no one can see it.
Hopefully, when we talk to you Sunday, you'll have a better update for us on the patio. But until then, we'll see you then.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, stay safe. Cool. We are being joined now by fellow Pennsylvanian, Ryan Wilson, up there in Pike County. Ryan, can you hear us? How are you?
Heidi, can you hear me?
We can.
Wonderful.
How are things up there?
Overcast, cloudy, empty, the usual.
Same down here.
Yeah.
So how is quarantine treating you? Any news from the state that you think is interesting?
Not a whole lot. The state's been pretty quiet, been watching the numbers, been pretty consistent. The cycles of new cases continuing to go down. Looks like so far pretty solid. Our peak occurred on back on the 9th. So we're a couple weeks out of the high loads. So that's all good news so far in terms of, COVID.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I'm sure you saw the questions. The questions are along this week, so I'm going to do abbreviated versions of them.
Okay.
But you ready to jump into it?
Sure.
All right. Let's do it, man. So several meat packing plants have announced that they need to close because they don't have the workers.
Mm-hmm.
Industry experts say that cuts our production capabilities by 25% nationally. Trump has ordered them to stay open under the Defense Production Act. The plants have said, it doesn't matter if you order us to, we still don't have the workers.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is kind of a mess. Is there any other part of the supply chains or any other industry that you worry about breaking down as we go deeper into this quarantine?
All of them. I've been saying it from the start. We need to get back to work because everything, our supply chains, we have very much supply on demand. A lot of stuff is being delivered as quickly as possible. A lot of stuff is on shelves, but we don't have long store supplies of almost anything. Everything just comes in and then goes out very quickly. Very few things are able to be untouched for so long. Everything is so fragile. And logistically, because we've focused production in so many different areas and we've specialized so much, while it gives us great efficiency and great cost effectiveness, it makes it so that everything is 2 weeks away. Everything needs to be brought in. And whether it be internationally through ports or through plane, or whether it be from individual towns, we don't have many ways for most towns to be able to feed themselves, much less repair the trucks to bring in food.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
all of it.
Yeah, I think about the truckers themselves. I used to work in the industry where I had to learn all the truck regulations, and just like the regulations on those drivers are already pretty intense. But then when you start forcing the closure of these, basically, the truck rest stops that have the little pod hotels and stuff, and then you don't have the food places open for them. I don't know how long those guys are willing to not collect unemployment, because
luckily
it's got to be pretty hellish out there.
Well, one of the first things they did as soon as things started to get bad and the quarantine started to went in is they lifted the restriction. I think it was something like you can only drive 8 to 10 or 12 hours
you
per
could
day.
do 12. You're allowed to work 14 hours in a day, but you can only drive 12, and it's
they lifted that number a couple of weeks back because they realized that stuff wasn't going to be delivered with less trucks and stuff was needed to get delivered. Supplies were getting hit pretty bad, mostly toilet paper at the time, but it just got worse and worse and worse. So they did lift that. That is a plus, but then you risk burnout, you risk people working too much. And then also there is the whole forced labor thing, which is going to touch on a little bit more with chicken, because amongst many other things, if the people don't want to go to work, unless you draft them and drag them out of their homes, you can't do anything.
Especially when you're paying them more to sit at home.
Exactly, which is, I think, a big reason why a lot of those workers didn't go in. I've known a lot of the meat processor workers. We had quite a few in Ashland around Richmond, and they weren't getting paid a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Clay and I discussed this before we were joined by our guests, but Pennsylvania just launched their, what is it called? Pandemic Assistance Unemployment, PAU. I was going over the eligibility requirements, and one of them was just quit your job because you were scared about COVID-19. So if you've got kind of a crappy job anyways, and you are genuinely scared about COVID-19, it is going to be hard to keep people working.
Well, another issue too is a lot of people argue, well, it'd be beneficial if people stay home. There's less chance of spreading it. And without even touching the more and more things that we learn biologically about this disease, we do know that in terms of keeping a cure going, we're not going to be able to do it if all of society collapses. You know, it doesn't matter how many respirators we have in New York City if 8 million people starve to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is
logistically, there's other stuff.
I almost included that as one of our questions this week. There's some great audio from a few different governors last week about just telling people who are worried that they haven't got their unemployment, they don't have money for food, to go get a job.
Yeah,
which is surprising to me. All right, let's move on. We'll do the second question pretty quick because I'm more interested in your third answer.
Okay.
But YouTube's announced that they're going to start taking out videos that give information that either contradicts or is just not supported by the WHO. Facebook has said that they're going to send warnings to people who have liked or commented on information that they've deemed false, also citing the WHO. WHO, as we all know, has issues with their own credibility. So do you think that the social media companies should be policing information in this way on their platforms, or not?
I significantly don't. I think I mentioned this before, is one of the things we know about pandemics throughout history is that they don't change behavior, they amplify it. These platforms were already authoritarian, they're already controlling, they're already censoring, they were already that. Now they've got more incentive to do it at much greater amounts, and they're just going crazy. And it's not going to end at this. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't disagree. All right, finally, 8 out of 10 of the COVID-19 hotspots in the U.S. are jails or prisons. Many regions, including Philadelphia, have released their low-level and nonviolent offenders from jails already. Some groups are demanding that more be done. What do you think?
There have been a lot of people that are saying that everyone should be let out of prison for several years. It's not like this is a new argument for them. They're just looking to get more of an excuse. Sure, there's more protections that could be done to keep people in, but just because someone is nonviolent, it doesn't mean that that there aren't victims. There's a difference between nonviolent crimes and victimless crimes. And on top of that, too, some of these people that they're looking to send out are not simply nonviolent. Some of them are quite violent, in fact. There was at least one case in New Jersey within 24 hours, the guy let out of prison killed someone. While that's certainly not going to be the normal case, it's something that should be taken into account, is that many of these people were put away from society. There are 3 reasons why we send people to prison, and one of them is because the public is safer with them not in it. And I'm not saying we should just leave them in there to die for sure, but if anywhere could be quarantined and keep people from going in and out in a controlled manner, I would think it would be prison. I don't understand how it's flourishing so much. I mean, I get it that there's not everyone's in a cell, but surely some of these prisons should be able to control it.
Yeah, I guess going on a cruise is a bigger crime.
Yeah, well, that's the funny part. They're trying to let people out of prison while arresting people for going to the park.
Yeah, that's the part that seems weird to me, is the idea of releasing folks, but then also, mayors and governors now going like, look, we've tried being nice. We're going to start arresting people if you're not social distancing. It's like, well, that's fine. Arrest me. I guess I'll just get let out again right away.
Now, what's the old saying? Give them an inch, they think they're a ruler.
Yeah. Great. Anything that was in the news or some big story or idea that you didn't think got enough attention this week?
I know it's been touched on a little bit. I don't think it got much attention. For instance, there was a mayor in, I'm going to forget where, someplace in the South, and he arbitrarily suspended the ability to carry a firearm for people that were legally doing so. On the argument that crime has been going up, and because there's an emergency, that in addition to crime going up, they were stopping people from legally carrying guns, because then the police would be able to tell the difference, and anyone with a gun could be stopped. That it seems like they're just taking advantage of the situation to restrict firearm ownership. And I think that there are a lot of steps being touched on. The Supreme Court, of course, still hard at work through some sort of I think they're using an audio. They don't use video, but they're continuing to chug along, but rights are being challenged and trampled in the name of emergency. And this is definitely putting a strain on the American experiment. And it's distressing, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's a certain bit of tone deafness from that major. Crime is going, or mayor, crime's going up. So no one's allowed to carry guns.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. You just told me I should definitely carry my gun.
Well, he was against carrying a gun before, and this just gave him an excuse.
Yeah, I'm sure that instantly sued, right?
We'll see. Courts aren't touching most cases nowadays. It keeps going back and forth. There's a California judge that overturned the background check requirement for ammunition because people needed to buy it, and something like 19% of ammunition purchasers were being incorrectly denied due to false negatives on the background checks. That's a huge amount. And so they did that. But then a couple days later, another judge overturned it, so the law is back into effect.
Thank God we don't live in California or New Jersey, right?
Well, for now, they keep moving out. Just look at Virginia. The majority of Virginians that are registered voters weren't born in Virginia. Northern Virginia is taking the state significantly in a direction that the rest of the state isn't necessarily, and most of them are from New York and various other areas. Yeah. It is, I don't know.
Talk about an area that needs to be quarantined.
All right. Well, Ryan, thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon. All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Yeah. Stay safe, buddy.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Joining us now is our final guest for the evening, which is Paisley down there in Greensboro, North Carolina. Paisley, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's quarantine life down in North Carolina?
Pretty good. They've extended it very last minute to May 8th. Elton John has been postponed.
Oh, no.
Yeah. A lot of the events that kind of we were thinking might be the start of getting back together, normalcy, have officially been postponed. But our big tournament that was canceled like midway through the tournament, the ACC has been, we have gotten the bid for 2023. So we'll see you then if you're into the ACC men's basketball.
Yeah, it's a long way off though.
Yes. They got to stop in DC and Brooklyn first.
Oh, I'm sure they'd rather go to Brooklyn than Greensboro, North Carolina.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So.
All right. We're going to hop right into our questions. They're a little long this week, so I might ask you a more abbreviated version.
Sounds good.
Several meatpacking plants have announced that they're going to have to close because they don't have the workers. Industry experts say that's going to reduce our national ability to produce pork and chicken by about 25%. Trump has ordered them to remain open via the Defense Production Act, but the companies still say we still don't have workers. The whole thing's a bit of a mess. So, aside from pork and chicken, is there any aspect of the supply chain that you're worried will break down, or any particular industry?
I feel like I can live without the pork and chicken, but I did go to the grocery store yesterday and there was no chicken. I would say that, I think some other products that have been touch and go, generally in like agricultural sense in general, I would always be hesitant because they work on bare margins anyway. So like your milk and your eggs, because like they go up and down crazy. I remember when there was a surplus of eggs 2 years ago, and then we were in a over amount of milk. So any agricultural products are always going to be somewhat nervous to do, and I hope that with this assistance, maybe the supply chain in the U.S. will be okay.
Yeah, eggs have already gone up. I was reading a thing not too long ago that egg prices are up 30% across the country. So
yeah, so
I guess even the chickens are scared.
Yeah, they're feeling the maybe make less eggs.
Yeah. Well, if you're stuck outdoors, you're probably scared about getting this thing.
Yeah.
It went to the tigers. Who knows if it can go to the chickens?
Right. Well, and I've heard that people are buying chickens now. Like that's a big thing. I know I have a couple of Facebook friends who are like, our backyard's getting ready for chickens. I already have friends who have had chickens,
Mm-hmm.
and I've like house sat them before. But I mean, I'm not ready to do that. So I hope things stay the same.
Yeah. My mom
Yeah,
has chickens.
I would advise people not to get chickens, but to make friends with someone who has chickens, because in non-quarantine times they are willing to give you eggs all the time.
They make a lot of
Right.
eggs.
Yeah, I don't know right now if people are maybe hoarding those eggs, but in normal times people don't rely as much on eggs, and you get free eggs all the time. You
Oh
guys
yeah.
know that eggs, if you don't do whatever they do to them at the store to make them all clean and white, they could sit around for like weeks and be good.
Yeah, and we're like the only country that refrigerates them and does the weird processing too.
I thought that was an elaborate troll someone was playing on me. I didn't believe that at all. And I thought it was gross. I was like, ew, look what's on these eggs. Boy, was I wrong.
Right? It's crazy.
All right. YouTube's announced that they'll be automatically deleting videos that have information that either supplements in a non-approved way or contradicts the WHO. Facebook has said they're going to send warnings to people who commented or liked things that they've rated false based on information from the WHO. The WHO has had some of its own issues with information they've given out about the coronavirus. So, do you think this is the right approach for social media companies and that they should be policing the information on their platform or not?
I feel like there's a fine line. I feel like regulation is generally needed for most communication. That's why we have things like the FCC. I don't know if it. I do think it hinders parts of your freedom of speech. I think that you could easily do with a video the same thing you do with explicit content. Either notify that, hey, this might be false information. Hey, here's a better source. I mean, I think anything that people say is probably going to be reviewed into some degree, and I know that it could be more beneficial because I know I have relatives who will spew anything one way even though it's completely wrong. So I feel like
Do you,
that went a really big circle, but yeah.
no, it's fine. Do you think coronavirus is a special case?
I think that it's not special. I think it is part of kind of the media 24/7 news cycle, and I think everyone commentates in different ways. Um, so if you're going to do something like that, then I think some things might need to be stepped up. I know that Facebook has been on the fence on controversial political aspects of what they cover, whether it's right or wrong. So I mean, I feel like if you're going to be like stern and regulate one topic, you might want to try and regulate most topics to be concise. And like I said, I would really prefer if there was some kind of like FCC within the social media landscape anyway, just to be kind of that, hey, we'll fine you if certain things are wrong, or hey, here's your warnings, because information travels fast, and that's kind of the scary part for sure.
Mm. All right, and then we'll move on to our last question of the night, which is 8 out of 10 COVID-19 hotspots in the US are jails or prisons. Many regions have already emptied their jails of nonviolent or low level offenders, but a lot of groups are saying this is not enough. They want more people released. What do you think?
I know right now, my neighbor is a retired police officer, and
Is that the
she
one who is she lives with the nurse?
she lives with a nurse. So I have a retired police officer and a nurse that live in the same house next door. But she was saying that crime rates are surprisingly down right now. Based on her friends who are in the force. And so, but she said that it doesn't hurt to have the low offenders out, because it does provide less space. But I think I like, to me it's a hotbed, and it could be actually a place. I mean, this could also be human rights violations, but it could be a beneficial way of tracking and understanding the virus more because they are in that confined space. But I think, you just have to to weigh the overall societal good on the prison and the jail itself. Like, were these people close to being escaped? Were they low crime felons? Things like that are pretty much the biggest concern out of it. It is interesting that they're the hotbeds because you kind of wonder, are the security guards bringing it in? Are they, how is it getting into a place like that too? It's more of the real question. So.
Well, I've always said, look, the government can't keep drugs out of prison. So the idea that they'll keep a virus out is laughable.
That is true and understandable.
All it takes is one inmate's wife to bake a coronavirus into a cake. Next thing you know, it's all spreading.
It's true. I mean, I do remember reading long ago that they were even trying to, I want to say this was like in the early 2010s, that they were trying to just be virtualized prisons. So you wouldn't have in-person visits anymore, that they were all going to be utilized, Zoom like conferences. But of course, that would mean that the jails would have to, update their technology, which of course we've seen on Orange is the New Black and things like that, that it's not very possible. And as well as like providing that court interaction, because that was another part of it, was that you would have your time in court in a Zoom conference, which, is that a fair and due process? So, and that to me is also scary because things like your court cases are getting backed up. So, if anything, this virus is going to just take its toll longer and longer, even though, we've been quarantined for a month. It's going to take months and probably years to get back to what was normal, as far as your schedules and orders in things like our courts.
True.
Yeah.
Well, is there a story or any ideas that have been floating around the past week you don't think got enough attention you want to bring up now?
I found this kind of interesting. I read this morning, Universal had very great success with Trolls 2, and they had said that they might be moving forward with some of their films just doing digital releases alongside movie theater releases. And AMC came back and was kind of like, well, if you do that, then we are not going to showcase any of your films. And AMC is one of the largest movie chains in the country. And it's just
I thought they just declared bankruptcy like 2 weeks ago, though.
Exactly. So it's a give and take on that reality. But while that's happening, drive-in movies theaters are having a spike, even though they're kind of far from where I live. But it's an interesting thing of how people are consuming their entertainment, and it is interesting. Like, I know that Amazon is doing their South by Southwest Film Festival this week on their website, and I want to say that YouTube is also hosting like parts of the Tribeca Film Festival. So it's interesting how we're going to consume our media moving forward, and what's going to happen to that traditional movie theater. Is it going to be a thing of the past, or is it going to be something that's like extra special? It's interesting.
Well, I think it's interesting to see which movies they're putting up too. So they've already announced the new Fast and Furious movie. They'll just wait till the theaters are back. But Disney put Onward out on Disney Plus right away.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to bring this up the last week, Jacob, because I wanted people to participate. But you are a fan of the Aquabats.
I know, June 20th.
Yeah. But they had their pajamas on music video participation, and I was gonna ask if you participated, and if not, last.
I didn't see it in time.
Oh. Yeah, see, you rushed me last week. I could have.
I know. I would have known.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Paisley, thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right.
Yeah. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
good week.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the first week in a while where stuff actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody brought up aliens.
I know. The aliens they're now here. They're with us.
Yeah. I thought surely someone would say this story's not getting enough attention, but nope, just me. Paisley brought up the FCC right after talking about the policing on social media. which is a good point. We do have that. But it reminded me that when I was in high school, we had mock Congress, and we had broken into little groups, and we all had to like write a bill that everyone would vote on, and we would debate as if it was Congress. And my bill was to abolish the FCC. So it's hard for me to not like get into that in the moment, but I don't know. Just thought that was funny. Just the different views on this and everything that's going on.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have any relatives who are sharing crazy stuff on Facebook?
I try not to check Facebook as much as possible. I don't think I'm friends with many relatives on my new account, but yeah, today I almost wrote a post that just said, "This website sucks." It's like, well, not exactly the target audience.
No, not exactly. Yeah, as I've gotten older, more and more family members have found me, and I sort of ran out of excuses. And yeah, my mother especially, I agree with her on a bunch of stuff, but she really hates this lockdown, and she thinks it's all a big government power grab.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Hopefully, a lot of people feel like that.
Yeah.
Not too much.
Right.
Not enough to force me back to work.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if we'll do another 6 weeks of this where I get to start every show by saying I still haven't gotten either form of unemployment.
Yeah, unless you get it, and then all of a sudden, lock it down.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, come on. You want to go back out there? It's full of animals.
Yeah. It's full of airborne AIDS.
Yeah. Have you seen it's a note to end on with everybody? Some of the pictures that are coming out now of these major cities, now that everyone's staying inside, there are dolphins in the Venice canals. The sky is clear in LA.
Yeah, big jellyfish in the Venice Canal. India, in Mumbai, there's like this archway that's constantly covered in smoke and smog, and now it's all clear.
Yeah, it's a bit wild to see. Like, oh, I guess this is just us living. But what are we supposed to do? Not live?
Yeah, well,
it's sort of weird. It's like an interesting thing to see, but at the same time, it's like, all right, well, I guess this just confirms that that's part of being human now, right?
Well, if our supply chains really do break down and everyone starts to off themselves like they did with the Great Depression, there might be a change in the tide on people's thoughts on environmentalism and how much we can actually afford to do. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Definitely, this thing definitely shakes things up. I don't know if that's breaking new ground, but boy, has this virus changed things.
It has changed things, huh?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'd be interested to see people still want to live in New York.
Yeah.
Would you? Would you want to live in New York now?
I wouldn't want to live there before.
Fair.
When I was like in my early 20s, I was like, this place is awesome. Everything's alive all the time. Like everything's moving and stuff's going on. And I went there when I was like 30, and it was just like, this sucks.
Yeah, you're like, God, everything's moving. It's always alive. It's always there's something happening.
Yeah, there's too many people here. There's just like, yeah, wasn't a fan. But I just hope that all those people don't move out to the country areas that I am looking to buy cheap land in before I can get my land.
True. They'll have that New York money.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll be the the China of America.
Yeah. It's been another good week. We'll see you again on a Sunday.
All right.
And hey, Clay, as always,
yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Hey, you too, bud. Stay safe.
I will. You too.